Welcome to Enhancing the Accountant Bookkeeper Connection series featuring my friend, my accountant, my collaborator, Mr. Jonathan Carter. So, um, for those who don't know me, that is me. I am here because I'm Tanya Hiltz, a CPB, FCPB, AIA, and L5CA. And I am here because I am passionate about collaboration. You can find me at Tanya's Bootcamp on all of those. And I just realized I need to update this. There is a new social media that, if anybody has not heard of it yet, it is called Blue Sky. And is it apparently for people who are not pleased with the amount of um whatever the turn that X, or formerly Twitter, has taken. So if you're happy with X, Blue Sky might not be for you. Blue Sky was actually started by one of the co-founders of Twitter, but wanted it to be basically free speech, but correct speech. And I don't know, apparently it's going to fix the what some might perceive, because we're not getting into politics here, as a political incorrectness of X. So I am on it. So I am on there as Tanya's Bootcamp as well. So I am on all platforms. So just something to look at. Anyway. A little bit about me, my industry designations, some accolades, both within and without of the industry. I'm just going to summarize this. That again, there's my industry designations, industry accolades. I've been for the last 2 years, which is the only 2 years that they've had the award, a Woodard Top 50 Accounting Services Practice, which is a North American award. 24 to from 2018 to 2024, Insightful Accountant Top, either 100 or Top 50 International Pro Advisor, because this year they've pulled it out to be Canada is included in the international. And so there's 50 of that. And then Intuit Firm of the Future 2018, global and reigning winner. So I get to say we broke the contest. And now a quote that has to do with
Nice.
today is, if you believe you can change, if you make it a habit, the change becomes real. And that was Charles Duhigg. I don't know who he is. I looked it up today to make sure, because it had been several topics since I've actually updated the quote. And so I really liked that. AI found it for me. And I really like that. And again, it's as I said earlier, it's a lot of psychological about it
Mhm.
and whatnot. So yeah, so we've got that. Just to confirm, this webinar does qualify for CPD credits through CPD Canada. It does meet the qualifications for every other, as far as I'm aware. We can certainly go through, but it would be a non-audited one. So I can certainly be provided if they do request, then we'll be able to go through. But CPD or CPB does has us all approved. We're pre-approved for these automatically with all the forms that we fill in. There will be two poll questions that must be answered in order to qualify for your CPD. And a recording of the webinar and your CPD will be emailed within 2 to 3 days. I'd say by the end of the weekend at the latest. So I should probably update this slide. If you don't receive your recording and your CPD by the end of the weekend, let's say, again, I'll update this slide. Don't forget to check your spam first. You may have either got yourself off of the email list by saying, oh, I don't want to get Tanya's email letters, whatever anymore, and clicked unsubscribe at one point or another, or it might not be properly whitelisted. So what you need to do is click to resubscribe at bookkeepersbootcamp.ca, enter your email address. You will then be sent to validation one. So check your email, your spam too, within a few minutes to verify that. If you don't receive that, then email me at bootcamp@mycbs.ca that you've resubscribed, and please resend the recording. I'll do that directly to you, and then we'll try to figure out how to get that fixed for next time. And please do not unsubscribe unless you don't want to hear from us ever again, or you're going to have to repeat this again. And that is it for me. I'm going to introduce, again, my friend, my collaborator, my accountant, Jonathan Carter, from CATA Accounting. We've been collaborating with Jonathan and his team for a number of years. We have mutual multiple clients. The one thing that I loved about it when I first started working with Jonathan, he actually works in QBO. So he understands the why we can't have a journal entry just to AP with it having a client, attached to it, and how that can potentially impact QBO. So he works at the same level of detail him and our team do that bookkeepers do. So it makes it a lot easier to collaborate for sure. And of course, they provide outstanding customer service. But for all of that, so it's really, really good working with him. And so now, Jonathan, you can take it away.
Thanks, Tanya.
You're welcome.
So there's somebody here doing some work. Nothing big deal right now, but let me know if there is some background noise and I'll mute myself when I'm not speaking. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I'm Jonathan Carter. I was part of the initial Accountants Council. And oh yes, this is right. I can no longer see the thing. Okay, that messed me up. All right, give me a minute, guys. So as part of the initial Accountants Council with Intuit, and that's the wrong thing. And what else? I won the Inspire Accountant Award 2018. I don't know if they ever did it again after that. The top 100 list
Can't
20
see your
was
screen,
it
Jonathan.
pardon me?
Can't see your screen.
Yeah, I was readjusting some things
Oh,
because
okay.
this new Zoom, it totally throws me off that I can't see you guys.
Oh,
And so I want to make sure that, I'm at least looking at the camera if I can't see you. So, okay, I'm gonna just skim through this stuff real quick. My biggest personal accolade, my thing I'm proudest of is last year's CPP Firm of the Year. We do work with a lot of cloud bookkeeping firms. I just had a 45-minute meeting this morning with somebody going over their deferred revenue and their prepaid expenses and stuff like that, and quite a complicated situation for a construction company. So that was a lot of fun, and I always love working with CPBs for that. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. So today we're talking about building habits and routines. Now, Julia and I have really done well with our lifestyle design. It really suits our purposes. It's very rewarding, but it was years in the making. It was like pretty much since we decided we were going to be together, we started our lifestyle design. So these are some of the things on the agenda today. The Power of Habit is actually Charles Duhigg's like kind of quintessential work. That is his big book. We're going to talk about that a bit. The Power of One, that's an idea from another book. Time blocking and switching costs, fewer choices equals more time. Designing your life, some simple ideas, and then questions and discussion. There aren't so many slides, so it shouldn't be too bad, but we have to have the first poll question. Now, I understand that, at least for many of us, there's going to be multiple options here that we want to select. It's completely subjective, and you just have to do it to get your CPD.
All right.
Okay. So we have the question 2 as question 1.
Oh, do we?
Can,
Okay, sorry. Hang on, guys. They've changed everything in the back end. And let's see here. Back. Wait, okay, so is this it?
yep.
This is the one. Okay, perfect. Okay,
Uh,
good. And we can see people are able to answer, so that's great. So I now cannot set the polls up ahead of time. Literally, I have to set them up
really?
after the meeting is started because that's what happened last. Yeah. It's all this fun stuff with Zoom events. And when I brought it back from events, when I canceled my event subscription that I figured 400 and something US a month was not worth it, brought it back down. It's now a half an event and half a meeting and half a webinar. I guess a third and a third and a third. So things don't work the way they're expected. Okay, so we will count down. Don't forget, you need both polls answered for your CPD. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll end the poll and share the results.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think self-care is extremely important. And I think that's the area where we neglect ourselves. most, right? So,
Yeah.
again, completely subjective, doesn't really matter what your answer is, just to get the thing. So, The Power of Habit is the second most influential book in my journey. I highly recommend it. It is a good listen as well as a read. I use it as a listen. Charles Duhigg, that was the quote at the beginning. That's the author. Now,
Oh,
he talks a
that's
lot more.
hilarious. Because I had no idea.
I'm sorry.
I didn't look that far ahead. Oh, that's funny.
So he actually, okay, a very, very quick tangent. He just came out with Super Communicators, which is on my reading list for my next business book to listen to after I finish the current one I'm listening to. To give you an idea, that quote at the beginning that Tanya shared was perfect because the number one most influential book in my journey has been Mindset. If you have the mindset that you can change, then change is possible. And the power of habit has really helped, not just personally. I mean, I have a lot of growing to do on the personal side, but from the business side, it's really helped create the situation where stuff is getting done. It's getting done in a quality manner, and it's teachable, trainable, and delegatable, which is most importantly. So I'm pleased to say that I've been working a reasonable amount for quite a while now. Last tax season, I think my average was about 50 hours a week, which was a huge change. And like most weeks, I am sticking, if we have a conference, it'll be more hours, but generally, or if other like kind of like, chamber events or whatever, but most of the time it's 40 hours or less most of the time. So I'd highly recommend having a read of this book. Essentially, what he talks about is the 21 days example that I heard you guys talking about at the beginning. So it is easier to build new habits than to break old habits. So replacing a habit can be a way. I have not quit smoking. I know I want to. I'm down to 5, 6 cigarettes a day. Tanya turned me on to this. I thought these were only available in Asia, but I've been using this from time to time when I remember to get that oral fixation. It's just it's one of those Vicks Vapo inhalers. Just something I'm doing.
Oh, that was me?
The that yeah, you guys told me that you and Carol
Did
actually, I
we?
think.
Okay, that's funny.
So you get a feeling in your throat when you draw it in. Anyway, it helps a bit. The big thing is with habits is there's a trigger that creates a response. And I wrote conditional stimuli, conditional tolerance. This is a term from addiction. I'm sure that other people have heard about this. But essentially something triggers you to do something, to have a behavior. And when that stimuli is there, your tolerance for that behavior is higher. So let's say, for example, for me, a spicy meal would be the stimulus to want a cigarette. I would go and have that cigarette, and because my tolerance is increased because of that stimulus, then I'm probably going to want more than one cigarette. So that breaking that and just stopping doing that really has helped reduce the number of cigarettes.
Jonathan,
Another
from
example.
being at the conference, I think Tanya had that with tequila, right? Tequila, you have to break that because your tolerance, is that what you said? Same idea?
Not me. And I don't drink tequila, so I'm a vodka gal.
Um,
Maybe
yeah,
Tanya.
I don't,
Look.
I don't know.
It was just interesting when you made that point about the trigger and how certain things just get you and they put you into this path that you continue on. So I think you just made a very good point there. I just trying to emphasize it with.
Yeah, fair. I'm going to expand on that a bit. When you have that trigger, it creates a response. It creates a chemical response in your brain too, and often an emotional response. So one of the things that has been most helpful for me is turning off notifications on my phone. I do have a few things that pop up for notifications, but they're not things that require me to switch my brain into work mode or create me angst. Everyone has that client where they call, you see the phone ring, and you just kind of go like this. That's the trigger, right? That trigger is creating an emotional and a chemical response in your brain. So if you had, say, I don't know, your phone to go straight to voicemail during your off hours, then you're going to avoid that stimulus and creating those conditions. So that's part of creating conditions for success, and of course, forgive yourself when you fail. I'm lucky I have a very patient wife because I've been trying to quit smoking for about a year. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about
Sure.
was the
I
Yep.
just want to point out there that, don't looking at failing as failing, look at it as an opportunity to succeed, to change something and succeed. So, for example, what I did when my successful time for quitting smoking, again, I changed it. So that goes to another one of my favorite quotes as well, too, which they say it's from Einstein, but they don't really know who truly did it, was that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. So change it up,
Yeah.
right? So change something and then, learn from it and say, okay, so I wasn't successful that time. So I learned this wasn't the way. Let's change something else.
I think that's,
And I mean,
two.
sorry, go on.
I think that's part of step 2.
Are there any
Sorry, jumping
statistics-
ahead here. I'll shut up.
No. I'm
No,
saying
step 2 of the 12 steps.
from the 12 steps, step 2.
Yeah.
Are
Which-
there any kind of statistics that you know about that indicate some habits are harder to break than others? Because I feel like smoking would be near the top of that list. I think a sugar dependency would be near, and drinking. Like some of these, I feel like some are harder to break than others.
But
Well,
all of those
100%.
are also a chemical dependency. Kim.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everything that you're suggested is all a chemical dependency in the body. So until, like sugar, until you change the palate of your mouth to not crave the sugar, because those taste buds at the back of your tongue are what generates that chemical craving for the sugar. So that's why when Tanya was saying at the beginning, 21 days. So if you were off sugar for 21 days, that breaks the habit of that taste for the sugar.
Yeah.
But the minute you introduce it back in again, there it comes.
yeah, it's
No,
And
also
you
okay,
could
but-
still have a trigger
It's
that
chemical-
creates that desire.
Of course.
Well, and I was going to say the physical part of it. So what I did when I quit smoking is, part of what I did, yes, I kept my cigarettes in there, but I moved to candies. So every time I wanted a cigarette, I popped something in my mouth. Now, I didn't want to take on all that sugar because I knew I had all these other things, going against me. So I found sugar-free candies that had sucralose. But then what happened is I'm like, okay, we got that. Then that created yet a different habit. So it was quitting smoking was a stage of multiple habits. I created another habit to help me with that. Then I had to quit that habit and find something to replace that. Because I mean, especially with the sucralose, I found that much sucralose was not healthy for me, and especially in my mouth, it actually started eating away on the inside linings of my mouth. I'm like, okay, now I have to find something to replace that, which is Jonathan, where you've got the Vicks inhaler. You know, what's wrong with the Vicks inhaler? I think that is I didn't even think about that. So I don't think it was me that said it, but it's another, yet something else that's healthier than the last habit. So sometimes it is that because there's the physical, then there's the psychological, right?
Well, there's brain chemistry, right, as well. There's a lot
There's
of
so
really
many-
interesting
there's so much
studies about
involved in it.
brain and the different things your brain is chasing, right? Like dopamine
Yep.
and different things, right? Um,
Yeah, that
The
leads to
book, The
addictive
Power of
personality
Habit.
disorders.
It could be, yeah. The book, The Power of Habit, does a good job of explaining some of those things. I can't share any specific statistics, but yes, addiction is different than a habit. And although you might have a habit that is an addiction, it is going to be harder to break than something that is not a physical addiction, right? Like, for instance, it'd be harder to quit smoking than to I don't know, stop watching America's
your
Voice or
nails.
something like that.
Or breaking
Biting
that with
your
biting your
nails.
nails.
Yeah, well, and a good habit that I'm trying to start all year long, which is, a habit, not a physical addiction to it, is my back yoga. Like we've all talked about that. It's 7 minutes a day, and but I
Actually,
have to do it
there's
lying down in bed. So it's like, do I do it in the morning? Do I do it at night? Then I get rushed, then I get tired. Different things happen. So I have to find that. But that's a great example of something that is a habit, not an addiction.
actually there's an
Starting.
addiction. Actually, there's gonna be said there's an addiction to the dopamine side of it that is created from doing the yoga.
But I haven't.
It's like exercise. It's like
But I haven't
exercise, but it's a
created the
good
habit
addiction.
yet. I haven't created it yet. It's creating it. Anyway, we will let
Mhm.
Jonathan continue
Yeah.
on. We've hijacked him.
Okay, so a couple just small things that I wanted to mention, things that I'm trying, haven't figured out if they're going to work properly. I have a couple shadow boxing weights, leaving them out in the living room. If in the evening when I go to sit down to watch a couple shows or something and seeing them there, it's like, oh, yes, I should use it. That's my trigger to create the action to create the habit. It's not a lot of weight, it's whatever it is, but it's better than nothing, right? It's a start. And so creating those triggers, planting those triggers in your life can really help. Tracy shared that she'd like to change her nighttime routine. That's something that I need to do as well, and I want to do as well. So, what could be a trigger that we could set for ourselves to help us create a healthier routine in the evening? Any
Walk
thoughts,
away from
Tracy?
technology.
Yep, lock up and walk away from technology.
Walk away
Absolutely.
from technology and maybe read a book or
Turn
something
off the
like that
TV.
instead. Or
Yep, the blue light
meditate or
stimulus,
yoga.
phone, tablet, TV. Yep. Yep, some kind of exercise, that could be one.
I wish
There's
you
a
hadn't
lot of different
wish you hadn't
Sorry?
said that because, well, I heard I'm going to get away from technology, and I'm like, I'm trying to get into it to make my life easier. And reading a book, there's this awesome thing called Audible. It's been awesome. It's amazing,
Yeah.
but it's all technology. Oh my! And then you're going
There's
to bring it back the other way.
My books
there's
are on my
actually
iPad.
there's actually proven research that blue light stimulates awakeness and alertness
I use an app that
from
changes my
screens.
light at night on my
Nice.
phone. Yeah,
Nice.
so I use that, and it's been very helpful. Because
There are
I
also
read on my, like I use the phone sometimes to read and things, right?
yeah.
What's it called, Shannon?
Twilight?
Okay, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'm going to continue on. We've talked a lot about the triggers, about the stimuli that create the routine and the habit. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. Yes. Did I lose you all? Test, test.
Yes, we've got it. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Yes, I forgot you
We're all
couldn't
muted.
see
All
our-
right.
You're muted.
I was
We're all
worried my
trying to put
headphones
our
had died.
thumbs up, and I
Thumbs
forgot
up.
you can't see
I
them.
can't see you.
I forgot. Yes, we still got you. We still see your screen.
All right. So I just wanted to talk briefly about this one. I've talked about this book a lot in the past, The 5 Choices, The Path to Extraordinary Productivity. This really, the big takeaway from this is the power of one, or one ring to rule them all, right? If you have 5 different calendars you have to check whenever you're booking an appointment, it takes time, it creates angst, it creates frustration. Having things in one area are really helpful to helping you organize, but also to helping you create those triggers and to create those situations where, okay, this trigger happens, this action is going to happen. So for instance, my Google Calendar rules my life. All right. I get a note that, okay, I have a deep work session coming up. All right. These are the tasks I'm going to be working on. There it is. It's all in one spot. And by having those triggers, having that all scheduled and really sticking to that schedule, that has really helped me be very, very productive. Does anybody else have anything like where you have information, but it's kind of broken around and it's in different places? Those triggers maybe are in different spots, and you have to, kind of coordinate and figure out different what is my trigger? What am I doing now? Those kind of questions. Not seeing a lot of response. So, oh,
Shannon has her hand up there.
go on.
I also have my mouth full. I apologize. My biggest thing that I struggle with is multiple people contact me multiple ways, like text and messaging and email, and then they somehow, you know, I have multiple email addresses and sometimes they end up with a different one for some reason. Yeah, so I get really frustrated with all of that.
So the way that I have dealt with it, and I think that Tanya might have something to say about this differently, but is if, let's say, a client texts me and it's about a business matter, I'm going to say, I am not going to log this. I'm not going to take action on this. I don't deal with business via text message. I don't deal with business via WhatsApp. You know, I don't deal with business via Facebook or LinkedIn messaging or something like that. And I make that very clear to people. The one exception is when we get leads coming in, and I just tell them, I'm going to reach back out to you from this email address, and that's how we're going to communicate. It's been very helpful for me. And another thing that really helps is not answering the phone or, you know, just telling people those boundaries that this is for personal, this is not for business. Now, Tanya, I believe you use a tool to help get everything funneled in, right?
We do. We use Client Hub. And Sandra is the one who really manages and monitors this. So when clients come on, first off, we tell them our email. So any of you guys who've emailed, you're going to get a autoresponder. So the autoresponder, if you use my email directly, it will actually respond. And it is not necessarily meant for people that I choose to give it to. It is meant for people who get it via a calendar meeting and think that they can get me quicker or me directly that way and can circumvent something else. So the autoresponder goes back saying, this email is not monitored. It is used for two-factor authentication only. Please, you know, send your email to either support@mycbs.ca or to Client Hub. Now, Client Hub is what we use internally for clients. Email communication is for people who are not clients. Once they become a client, if they email us, it's very rare. Like we tell them if there's something, I'm like, go ahead and email it, forward it in. I'm like, I'm looking for it now. Otherwise, we and Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong. We actually wait and don't respond to them. We tell them we only check that sporadically a couple times a week, and that's it. And that autoresponder says that we only check it a couple times a week, essentially. And we force them to go into Client Hub and to use Client Hub. We tell them this is part of our process. If they choose to not use the process, we will not even give them a price. And if they do email in, again, we'll wait. It's putting them in their timeout and teaching them their consequence for doing something that is not part of our agreed upon process, and then basically copy that and respond to that in Client Hub. Now, in Client Hub, we can see the full history of everything. So there's other people use different apps to do the same thing. There's Listio, Financial Sense has something built in, but the whole purpose of it is now everybody can see the whole history of the whole communication. And that makes auditing or whatever easier. If somebody says, no, I didn't say that, show me the email where I said that. Well, no, we don't have to go looking. It's all in there.
Yeah. Those kind of tools and those kind of setting those boundaries, setting those rules can be really helpful. One challenge we had very recently was a client came back to us. Well, her admin came back to us and said, there's a bunch of things that are not categorized properly in QuickBooks. What's going on? And lo and behold, we discovered she was not responding to any of the questions being asked by Keeper. She had 407 questions outstanding. That's what's going on. So sometimes it creates some conflict, it creates some drama, but I think that it's really important to set those boundaries and whatnot. Or Shannon's right, you're going to lose your mind. Your things are going to be ringing all day, all night. You're going to miss stuff. Stuff is going to fall through the cracks 100%. So just a thought with regards to building habit, building routine. Now, unfortunately, we have not been able to do the power of one for our practice management. We have Keeper, which runs our bookkeeping. We have Dubsado, which runs our new customer intake, tax, and consulting side. So unfortunately, there is no power of one that we have really solved from the practice management standpoint, but we know that everything is online. Everything is on Google. Nothing is sitting on somebody's desktop. I'm going to keep going. No, turn off your notifications. I swear that's the best thing I ever did. Time blocking is a very useful thing to do. You set aside time for deep work. You set aside time for shallow work. You set aside time for client meetings. When I'm doing this in Google Calendar, if it's deep work, it's a recurring activity. Like, okay, these times every Monday, these times every Wednesday, these, and what they're for. Wednesday afternoon is for marketing, for instance, marketing and sales. Tuesday morning is for team, or Monday morning is for team, right? Tuesday morning is for my catch up and my work. Sometimes a client will just send a random meeting invite and they aren't even considering your schedule. They're considering their needs and whatnot. When it shows up, I have those times marked as busy, so it will automatically decline the meeting invite and make very clear to the client that they need to confer with me to book a time. For our clients, I will book some times that are not in my meeting blocks, but for my public schedule, it's all in the meeting block time. If you want a time otherwise, we have to have a compelling reason and we have to have, coordinate to figure out when that is.
Jonathan,
Locking, yep.
sorry, I have a question about the time blocking and the program that you're using for it. So I do something similar where I'll block time in my calendar that's for specific things. I'm currently using Bookings as my calendar booking software. So let's say I have Mondays from 1 to 5 blocked off, that's when a client can schedule meetings with me for. Find that available time if I have it blocked. Is there a workaround for that, or is it just that Bookings doesn't allow me to do that?
I have no idea about bookings for calendar,
Okay.
for TidyCal, which is our current tool, and for Acuity, which is our previous tool. It syncs to Google Calendar, and we will also indicate when we're willing to take meetings in the time booking app. So that if a client
Oh,
looks, they don't see every free block on my schedule. They only see what I'm telling Calendly to show. And when they book
so you're
the
not
meeting will
putting an
appear on my
action
schedule.
in your putting it in your Bookings app or your TidyCal.
That's showing what's available that I'm willing to be
Okay,
available. Yeah.
got it,
Now
got it.
I do make, alternative arrangements if it needs to happen, because sometimes it needs to happen.
Yeah, same, but I think I'm doing it the wrong way around. I'm putting a block in my calendar and saying, but then my app is not recognizing that as available time. Whereas
Yeah.
instead I need to use my app and say, this is the only time that they can book, but
That's
leave it
that's
open in
probably
my
right.
calendar. Okay,
Yes,
Yeah,
yes
like
and
got it.
no.
lock the time up for client meetings and say it's free so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they can book those meetings.
That's the one I was going to mention, and because we use Calendly and TidyCal, and I think they work the same way as and what you mentioned, Jonathan. And Kimmy, I was doing it the same way too. When you were saying this, oh my God, that's what I was doing. I forgot about
Yeah,
the free time versus available, even when you block out for the meeting itself.
Yeah. So
yeah.
on my
Mhm.
calendar, so like Jonathan, I have only booked between 9:30 and 4:30, Monday to Thursday. Don't let anybody book on Friday. So that's there as a main rule. I also have it turned on in where it connects. If there's anything that is a tentative meeting or my time that I've got blocked off that's like free time, but like I might not be here or out of office busy, I have all that recognized as not available. Then there are, so right now, what I've been doing is every Friday morning, I go into my calendar because this is only a temporary measure and I block off all the next week and I put do not book and I put it a whole week of me being busy. So that way nobody else can book in just while I kind of get things caught up through to the end of the year. And that's a temporary measure. So I kind
Yeah.
of use both.
So when I'm blocking, I need to go in and toggle it that I'm actually available still. That's the step that I'm missing that I hadn't been doing. So, okay, thanks.
My question is, Jonathan, are you actually booking your slots? Like, okay, you're this time slot, I'm doing the deep dive in your calendar. Are you booking all that in your calendar?
Oh, yes. After we're stopped recording, I can share my screen and show you like what my January is starting to look like,
Okay,
for
thanks.
instance. I know.
Yeah.
But yes, I block the time, I book the time. Be sure to account for things like travel time, switching costs. For deep work, that was inspired by the book Deep Work. And I don't block less than 3 hours. I find 3 hours is perfect. Sometimes I need a break about halfway through, but usually 3 hours is good to really get a good amount of work done.
Okay, thanks.
One thing that I have trouble with is sometimes using the time as intended and being present and mindful of what I'm supposed to be working on. So for instance, I might have, okay, I have 15 minutes before my deep work session starts. I know what I'm doing in my deep work session, but I'm going to look at my inbox. And then that can be a rabbit hole, right? We all know that. So having that discipline to use the time as intended is important. Gotten better at it. Sometimes I might just, say, okay, no, I'm done this task. I'm going to leave that email in draft. I'll come back to this after. They estimate that for every email you look at when you're looking at when you're trying to be focused on deep work, it causes almost a 2-minute distraction just by looking at the email. Switching costs, I know Google did some research on it and they found the switching cost was about 20 minutes for the average person to switch from their mindset from one deep work project to another deep work project. This has been the biggest thing that has impacted my life and my schedule. And the biggest two I need to continue working on are using the time as intended and being present for that time. So switching costs, there we are. So this is some interesting stats. Switching costs, the time it takes to change tasks, change mindset, and settle into the new work that you're working on. It can cost as much as 40% of someone's productive time. Multitasking is not efficient. So responding to an email immediately costs 64 seconds per day. Sorry, I had that stat wrong when I mentioned it a moment ago. So somebody who's looking at email regularly, that's up to 1.5 hours a day, just gone, just by having those distractions, by getting those notifications. I'm not a big fan of the idea of the 4-hour work week. If it was really work, okay, I would lean towards that. But for me, it's vocational. It's something I'm really passionate about doing. If I tried to limit all my accounting to 4 hours, I would probably get bored as hell and
Sorry,
lose my
4 hours a week?
That's the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Tim Ferriss,
What?
it's a well-known, yeah.
Holy moly. Okay.
Doesn't
It
apply to
is
accountants.
it is, well, it's a great hook, but it's not realistic, right? His business is information sales online. He hires out everything, he delegates everything. It makes a lot of sense for him. But there were some good takeaways here. Removing choices, for instance, from your life. Not all choice, but when you need to have a day. Like I know every day I am putting on a golf shirt and a pair of jeans. I'm not putting on a suit. I'm not deciding how I'm going to look stylish to go out. I don't care. I'm putting on my uniform every day. I have 3 choices for breakfast every day. That's it.
And what's interesting about that is, and this is actually in one of the boot camps, that, when it comes to, what do they call it? Analysis or whatever. There's too many choices. Same thing. I can't remember what
Yeah.
that psychology is.
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis. Thank you. And
Last bullet.
President Obama wore the same outfit every single day, basically. And it wasn't the same outfit, but that was it because so the only choice he had to make was his tie or something like that. Or maybe it was the same tie. But I thought that was really interesting because it took that away. And I know as a female, when I used to sit there and look at my wardrobe going, oh, what do I want to wear today? Like half an hour is just wasted trying to figure stuff out and trying stuff on, right? So that is a thing.
There's another thing about the clothing aspect of it. If you're putting on your uniform, I consider this my work uniform. It's the trigger to move you into work mode, right? That can help. The choices for breakfast are just an example of something that I don't have to think about. I'm either having oatmeal, cereal, or eggs and toast. That's what I'm having 5 days a week. Saturday and Sunday, yeah, I'll take the time. I might make pancakes or something like that, or make some bacon for once in a while. But by doing this, by removing choices, it can really reduce the amount of brain power that you need to use and help establish those routines and habits. A good example of removing choices is the 3-tiered pricing model that we see all the time. We're not getting the clients, okay, what do you want? They don't know what they want. Okay, this is what we offer. Well, they don't know what they need. So if you give it, okay, here's A, B, or C, they only have 3 choices to make. Was it 80% are going to choose the middle,
Yeah.
I believe?
Yeah, well, and especially when it comes to, offering clients payment plans and payment options, I say, here you go. You can choose between the 1st and the 15th. And look at that. When you call your doctor to make a doctor's appointment, and how many of us do this when you're like, oh, when when do you want to come in? If a client talks to us, or when do you want to meet? No, when we call other professionals, they say, okay, here's what is available this week, and gives 2 or 3 choices. They don't pick up the next unless all of those are said, no, I can't make it all this week. They will say, okay, I've got this date or this date, like this day at this time or this date at this time. So again, not a lot of choices. It limits it, but yet we do the exact opposite. And I do that too when I talk to clients. I'm like, oh, when do you want to meet next week? So which is why I send my booking link. So then my booking link can deal with that.
So I'm going to move on because I realize that we're at 10 to the hour and I'll be respectful of people's times. So talking about lifestyle design, what is the lifestyle you want? Sometimes we have this romantic idea of what we want, and you really have to think about it, right? So for instance, some of the things that you might think you want come with things that you don't really want. So one thing that kind of tripped me out moving out here to the country from a 1100 square foot condo to a 1200 square foot house, but it's on like nearly an acre, was the yard work. I didn't think about that aspect of it. Now I love it. It's become a part of my routine and my habits and whatnot. But you really got to think about your goals and think about what you want, right? With regards to designing your life. So I think mental health is the most important thing. If something is challenging you mentally, you need to seek help. I have used BetterHelp, and there was one more online one that we used briefly. I've used psychologists and psychiatrists, and I don't use them on an ongoing basis. Like, here's the objective, here's what we want to accomplish. Help me get to that point, and then I'm gonna move on. But without your mental health, it's the physical health can really suffer. It can be really hard to actually go and do anything if you're depressed and you're stuck in bed all day, things along those lines. Your physical health, I think, is number 2, because without that, you can't help anybody. Map out the changes you want, take it very slow, just one thing. Oh, sorry, just one thing, right? Try to change one thing at a time. If you change everything at once, it's a recipe for disaster. The rare times that I've heard of success in this is when somebody has completely changed their environment. So they move to a completely new city where they don't know people. They're essentially starting from scratch. It's very easy to fall back in old habits, but once you're doing that, you have removed all of your triggers. So if you can keep those triggers out, you can really change a lot at once. But generally speaking, one thing at a time. Make sure your lifestyle design goes back to your goals. If it doesn't, do you need to change your goals, or do you need to change your lifestyle design? So a few things I've had real success with and I'm super grateful for is every morning I'm up probably just before 7. I take Jamie and get him changed, and we get to hang out until 9:15 almost every morning. And I mean, that might be playing, it might be, I have to feed him, change him, get him dressed and stuff like that. But I mean, that's an opportunity that most dads don't get. And I'm super, super grateful for that. Then in the evenings, I'm done. Most nights I'm done just after 5, and I get to cook and we get to eat. And we get to eat food that we can identify that isn't full of chemicals or out of a box. So these are just little things that have really helped us. And I just wanted to share them. So we talked about breakfast before. I'm limited to 3 breakfasts. Determine that you'll have the time to prepare them realistically. If you're making eggs Benedict on a Monday morning, it's probably going to take a lot more time than making a couple fried eggs or something like that. be mindful of about how food makes you feel after eating it. So that's something that I really notice, particularly with lunch. If I'm eating something out of a box, like, I don't know, I love my Sapporo Ichiban instant ramen, I'll feel a lot more logy. I'll feel a lot more down after eating that than I would if, say, I had soup in a sandwich. If I have pasta, I'll probably feel more logy after lunch. But in the evening, that might be appropriate. Stock them and stick to them. Tim Ferriss advocates for no choices, so you know exactly what you're going to have Monday to Friday, every meal. You have no choice. But the big thing is it conserves brain power. Clothes, we talked about that a lot. I found that reduced choices has actually reduced the size of my wardrobe. If I don't feel confident about it, I get rid of it. And I had a very wealthy person say to me once, he's like, if you're not confident in your underwear, it's time for new underwear. And it really starts that low. So like socks, underwear, shirts, whatever. Creating that uniform, it really, really helps set my mindset. If I come downstairs and I'm in my whatever I slept in, I'm not going to be in work mode until I put on my jeans and my golf shirt. I do occasionally coordinate the golf shirts with what's happening that day, but it's very rare. Um, for instance, like, you know, if I'm going to a QuickBooks event, I'm probably going to wear my green shirt that matches their logo, or I might wear one of the QuickBooks golf shirts that I have. Anyway, think about the options you'd give to a child. You wouldn't ask them, do you want to get dressed? You'd say, would you rather the blue shirt or the red shirt? Apparently, I misspelled that. All right, documentation. Hey, here's something that we're all familiar with. Every one of your clients is perfect at providing documentation at time. So one thing that really helps is working on building the habit, keeping monitoring it, and trying to get the bookkeeper on your team to be personal with that person to build the habit properly. What works for them? How's that going to impact your workflows? And how can they get things to you on time? Now, Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp really helped me think about the negatives, the boundaries, and what happens when you have to go beyond that one-touch policy, right? So if we get a transaction on time, we estimate that it takes between 1 to 3 minutes, depending on if job costing is involved, to get that transaction processed from Dex and into QuickBooks. Then when it comes in the bank feed, it's usually a simple match, or maybe it's a partial payment, a little bit more. But we're talking less than 3 minutes with job costing. The minute we ask for documentation, our time inflates massively. And that's something that we need to be aware of. So something that we're starting to do, and it is helping, is we're circling back with clients and we're trying to help them revise their habits. And we're watching for triggers because things will happen where a client will be on a perfect track and then they'll completely fall off a cliff. So helping them understand why that's happened and make a workaround. Maybe that needs to be delegated to a team member. Maybe they need to, you know, create more time for that. That has been very helpful. That one person who we talked about who had the 407 questions, this is really what triggered that. And now we're in the point where I think she has about 20 or 30 left. It's really not bad at all. So it's coming along. Let's get to the poll question so we can get our CPD.
The right poll this time. There we go. Okay, and then just a reminder, both poll questions must be answered in order for you to receive your CPD.
Again, 100% subjective. Everyone's answer can be different.
Exactly. We're not asking the right answer. It's just an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, guys, I'm on my phone. I'm not seeing a pop-up. Are we just answering in chat or am I just not seeing it because I'm on my phone?
Oh, it could be because you're on your phone.
Try
But
swiping left or right.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, miss the first one anyway.
Oh, okay, fair.
But the poll is how will you make your life easier? Because I think Kim, you came in after the first one, I believe. So,
Okay.
which you wouldn't get anyway, but feel free if you want to type your answer into the chat. Absolutely, feel free to do so. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna close the poll out. Oh, and now I've lost my, oh, there it is. End poll and share results. So can you guys see the results?
Time blocking. Okay, so
Time
that was the big takeaway from this one, was time blocking. Once we're done and we've stopped recording, I'm going to share my calendar and kind of show you what a blank or relatively blank week looks like. I see there's a ton of stuff on the chat. I'm hoping that we're going to get some good discussion going after. So just to recap, The Power of Habit. It's not just habit, it's also routine. Very, very much encourage you to check out that book. It's an excellent one. The Power of One. Also, The 5 Choices to Extraordinary Productivity. Highly recommend that book. But really the big thing is getting into one system. Shannon expressed her frustration with clients contacting her all kinds of different ways. Time blocking and switching costs, being mindful of how you use your time. We talked about that, and how fewer choices lead to more time, and some simple ideas for designing your life. So this book, I would say, so it's extreme ownership. It is very male centric. It is written by former Navy SEALs, and it deals with a lot of the same topics that are in the 5 choices. Overall, I think the 5 choices is a better book for the average person, but I think that this is also a very interesting book. And it's a much lighter, more story-based book. So it's definitely one that is better for listening than for reading. Discipline equals freedom. And anybody who is very successful, you will understand, have a very disciplined life.